42. The course of chemotherapy was finished. It almost finished Ben. Ben was very happy and relieved to have Charlene staying with him. The house didn't seem so big anymore. The grounds chores took on the character of a full-time job. The kid proofed ryegrass and red fescue lawn cleverly and deftly removed the belt from the riding mower in less than a minute. The lawn boy handled the job, but not as a self-propelled unit. After the first pass, it was making threatening noises, so both machines went to the repair shop. While nursing the lawn boy through the lawn, Charlene noticed that the lawn was planned as a balanced system. There was white clover to provide nitrogen for the grass plants. There was annual ryegrass to provide early green and shade for the slower growing fescue. Under the shrubbery, the fescue was replaced by zoysia grass. In the areas where there were limestone outcroppings, Kentucky bluegrass was the choice. The decisions as to patch edges were left up to the grass colonies themselves. It made for a very even turf, with no visible lines between types of grass. Flower beds provided buffer zones between travel areas and lawn. Under the mimosas in the backyard was a rich patch of vegetation. On further investigation, it turned out to be a compost pile. Miranda wasted nothing. All Charlene managed to do was to break Miranda's mowers. She really didn't want to inform Benny because he was having a fairly good day. Miranda had several good phone numbers on the garage wall. The first one she called had pickup and delivery service and an active account for the Slackmeyers. The flower beds were tougher. The early spring flowers had not been cleaned up. The irises were almost done blooming, and the roses had missed the spring pruning and made some of the beds moderately inaccessible. The house hadn't been thoroughly dusted since Thanksgiving. The windows had film from the winter, and the carpets needed a thorough cleaning. Charlene slept well there. Her dreams took on a domestic air. Fresh air and exhaustion helped too. Benny was easy to live with, except for his fragile health. He was grateful for the smallest things and never complained, even if Charlene knew that she had done something terrible. Clothing was the main source of discomfort. Charlene felt uncomfortable in Miranda's clothing. Benny would see her wearing something and would look hurt. He never complained, but Charlene knew the clothes had memories attached to them. It was very hard to replace the irreplaceable, and Benny's guilt loaded on top of the worship he placed on Miranda made Charlene feel like an interloper. The similarity in size and shape made it harder. Charlene was thankful when her freckles, which she had hated, ever since she could remember, came back. They made her look more like Charlene and less like Miranda. Most of all, she was younger and wanted the styles that she was used to. She felt at times as if she was wearing her mother's clothing. Ben, I've been here for 2 weeks. I know it hurts you to see me wearing Miranda's clothes. I can see the hurt in your eyes. No, really, it's okay. Stop lying to yourself. You haven't finished mourning her yet. I can't be her replacement, not yet, anyway, Slash. You're right. It does hurt. I'm sorry that I put you through that. I guess it's hard to compete with a dead person, or worse, try to replace one. Look, I can't go back to town. I don't want to impose on Marjorie anymore. You need me here. I should go get my stuff from Marjorie before she brings it here on the bus and dies trying to carry it from the bus stop. Both of them laughed at the image of tiny Marjorie burdened with luggage walking through the suburbs on a hot summer day. They both knew that Marjorie would try to do something like that too. The thought wasn't appealing. Charlene drove Miranda's Cadillac to Marjorie's apartment and got her possessions. It took 2 trips. Charlene was surprised. She didn't remember accumulating at all. She didn't bring much down with her from Connecticut. She didn't buy very much while she was teaching. She bought even less while she was staying with Marjorie. Driving back and forth to town was an adventure. She hadn't driven in over 2 years. She didn't drive much before that. She was nervous about driving the Cadillac. It was in every respect Miranda's car. The top of the dash was a drift of to-do lists, memos, phone lists, literature from various vendors, and other assorted paper. There was an accordion file propped up against the armrest, with even more paper in it. The passenger's floor was full of seed catalogs and gardening magazines. There was a notebook under the visor. It fell into Charlene's lap when she turned east into the sunrise and pulled the visor down. It was the record of what was ordered from the seed catalog. Charlene made a mental note to clean the car when she was finished moving. Benny insisted that she take the Cadillac to Marjorie's place. It was amazing how many people recognized the car and waved, even though Miranda had been gone for several months. It was hard to drive a dead woman's car. Marjorie was not home. Charlene had mixed feelings about that because she felt guilty about just leaving and not marking the event in some special way. The boxes of books were heavy. There wasn't much else to move. Her clothing filled two big suitcases and a couple of grocery bags. The small filing cabinet was the hardest thing to move. It was stuffed full. Before the incident in the park, she had been shopping for a bigger one. She was totally mystified about how Marjorie got it out of her place and home without any help. The drawers by themselves were heavy and awkward. Charlene had awakened one morning to find it in the corner of her room. Marjorie had never said anything about it. Nothing inside was disturbed. Benny was returning from radiation therapy when Charlene got back to the house. There was no way that he would be able to help unload. She stacked it all in a corner of the garage and went upstairs, carrying the suitcases. She was glad to have her own clothing again. She didn't like the pain she saw in Benny's eyes when she wore Miranda's clothes. She was really beginning to like him, and anything that was painful to Benny was painful to her. The worst thing about it was Benny's uncomplaining nature. Radiation left Benny exhausted. After he came home from the clinic, he slept for the rest of the day. The people from church were glad to see her. They had worried about Benny being alone. There were many theological discussions when they found out that Charlene was Catholic. Charlene was embarrassed about not going to Mass as much as she should have. She wasn't sure if Father Bob would ever want to see her again. Henry would leave her at a loss for words every time he came to the house because he truly wanted to know something about Catholic doctrine from a lay person. Charlene couldn't answer his questions. They stared at her as she crossed herself before prayers. Things in her that had been dormant since confirmation started to stir. The cloud that had been hanging over her for over 2 years started to dissipate. She even started thinking about going back to work. Charlene occupied the guest room. It was about the same size as the master bedroom, but it had a normal-sized closet and a more conventional bathroom. She lived there until 4th of July weekend. That Sunday night, the air was hot, still and heavy, even at 10 p.m. Lightning flashed on the horizon. There were rumblings of thunder, but that was normal. About 11, the air started to feel strange and still. The thunder was louder and more frequent. The lightning revealed very dense, very tall clouds. She looked out and noticed a few of the neighbors outside, looking to the southwest, as they scurried around picking up lawn furniture and other loose stuff. The wind picked up and the lightning was brighter and more frequent. The neighbors went back inside. The rain came, as did the big hail. The lightning came on and didn't go out again for a long time. When it did go out, there was a blue band of light coming across the hills, with little forked lightnings going into it. There was a rumble like a rail yard gone berserk. Charlene stood at her window transfixed for a moment. She had never seen anything like it. When a car disappeared, along with a tool shed, she screamed and ran to the master bedroom. Benny was securing loose objects in the bedroom. Quick, into the closet, and close the door to the bathroom. Benny, it's a tornado. No shit. I'm scared. So am I, but if we don't get into that closet and close both doors, we are going to be dead, if that thing hits the house. We're on the 2nd floor. There is a safe room on every floor. The closet is the safe room on this one. The pantry is the safe room on the 1st floor. The house is too big to have just one. The both dove into the closet and through the bolts on both doors. The storm suddenly seemed far away. When things quieted some, they emerged from the closet. Except for some mimosa fronds in the bedroom and some leaves in the hallway, nothing happened to the house that they could find. Without a word, they both climbed into the bed in the master bedroom. Benny's presence was no longer something to fear. It was a comfort. She snuggled up tightly against his back and went to sleep. The air was cooler and the tension was gone. The loneliness that Benny had felt since Christmas was gone too. Charlene wrapped her arm around Benny. Benny held her hand. Radiation didn't seem as frightening anymore. His cancer looked beatable. 43. Marjorie knocked quietly on Fred Katz's door. Fred jerked awake. Marjorie knocked again. Fred stumbled to the door, half awake. He peered through the peek hole in the door, but couldn't see anyone. Marjorie knocked again, then stepped back. Fred laughed when he saw Marjorie. Then he opened the door. Fred, I owe you an apology. If anyone owes anything, I owe you. Big time. No, hear me out. If you hate me afterwards, I'll be okay with it. What are you talking about? You saved my ass, not to mention my book. No, Fred. I have to tell you this, because I used you for evil purposes without either your knowledge or permission. You mean in the motel? You were only out from the botulism for about 3 hours. I drugged you for the rest of the time to perform experiments on you. Experiments? Yes, experiments. I had to develop a procedure to keep someone unconscious for an extended period and still alive and more or less healthy. You were the poor son of a bitch that fell into my path. Then it wasn't because I was famous then. No, it wasn't. I was looking for a wino. I found you instead. You served the purpose. What purpose? Fred, I did something truly monstrous. What could you do that would be monstrous? I hope you have a strong stomach and as good a sense of humor as I suspect, or it might be messy. Come on, what did you do? Charlene and I absolutely castrated someone, cast his manhood in lucite, and left him in the middle of the park naked and unconscious, after keeping him in our apartment until he healed too much for any repairs to be done. You what? A tornado. We. Charlene too. Charlene too. What does that have to do with me? We developed the technique to control him until the surgery healed. We used you for a guinea pig. You weren't using me for sexual purposes? Well, a couple of times. I got horny, but it wasn't that much a case of horny as it was a case of seeing if something like that would wake you up and to show Charlene that there was nothing to fear about you or sex. That's really funny. I mean about the purpose of you screwing me. Why did you well? He raped us and left us for dead. But you went in so much trouble. Do you have any idea what unanswered anger does to a person? I mean, well, I reported it to the cops, and they just gave me a hard time. They didn't take it seriously. They didn't call in a doctor or take samples. They were. My God, Marjorie, that's terrible. You must have been really hurting when you found me. Why didn't you try the surgical procedure as well? Something stopped me. I don't know. The thought did cross my mind, though. That really scares me. Look, Fred, if you want me to leave, I'll understand. I had to tell you this because I started to love you. I came over here to get some stuff and saw the shrine to your ex-wife. After that, I couldn't hurt you. After you woke up, I saw some things in you that. I know. You saw this pathetic loser of a scribbler that needed a source of inspiration. Stop it, Fred. Don't make me laugh now. This is hard for me to do. I took advantage of you and stole 3 months of your life. I almost cost you the contract on your book. I owe you more than an apology. Marjorie, snap out of it. If you hadn't come along, the contract would have expired on its own. I was washed up. I had nothing to give them. You woke me up and forced me to look around me. I rediscovered love. What do you mean, rediscovered love? I really had the hots for Charlene. I fanaticized for days about her. She was obviously terrified of me, and it couldn't have possibly worked. You told me about the rape, and I understood how violated you both felt. I didn't make any moves toward either one of you, because I could see the pain. It was in both of your faces. You're a better man than I deserve. I came here because I really love you, and I had an awakening. It happened this afternoon. My book is reality. I realized how big a part you played in making it happen. All I did was help you number the pages. No, you did more. You showed me that there is love in the world. You, a stranger, loved enough to pick me up off the pavement and make sure that I was okay. So you did an experiment or two. Big deal. I took advantage of you. The only regret I have of that period is not being able to remember any of it. I'm sorry, so sorry. Hey, kid, it's okay. I still want you. I still love you. I have fantasies, and if you don't want a relationship, I understand. We writers are a tough lot to love. You're so sweet. If you want him, you can move in with me, or I could move in with you. We could even keep our own places. I just want you to stay in my life. You matter to me. I forgive you. I went to confession. You confessed that to a priest? It almost killed him. You confessed that to poor old Father Bob? So did Charlene. How do you take it? I have a deep and abiding respect for him. He wants me to find the man I did that to and apologize as penance. Ow! He says everyone deserves love and respect. He also wants me to forgive him for what he did to me. That's a really tall order. I don't even know his name. I could help you look. No, it's my problem. I've done enough to you. You've done more for me. I don't deserve it. Marjorie, you are a strong woman. I know that you have done things. You are facing them. How many people can say that? We all leave trails of gore and devastation in our wakes. That is how people usually remember us. You have the courage to own your trail. There aren't very many people that have enough courage to do that. I know that you will do that if that is what is needed to make you well. Your ex-wife walked away from a wonderful man. I'm not that wonderful, trust me. Can you trust me? You earned my trust a long time ago when you didn't castrate me. How do you know that I won't later? I trust you. 44. Fred and Sol rounded up a minyan. It was YomKippur and they were Jewish. It wasn't easy in Sterling Forks. There were enough Jews for a minyan, but there weren't enough Orthodox for an Orthodox minyan. There weren't enough conservative Jews for a conservative minyan, and not enough Reformed Jews for a Reformed minyan. For this one day, everyone put their differences aside for Kol Nidra. Iggy Cohen presided as rabbi. Fred Katz served as cantor. They just barely made it. They had to include Marjorie. When they got to the Kaddish, Marjorie even bowed at the right place. The Torah lesson was Genesis 1. Francis and Jack sat in the sweat lodge and smoked the little smoke. They sang their song and communed with past shamans beyond counting. The song was about the fecundity and permanency of life. The door to the dreamscape was open for good. Nobody else really noticed. They were too busy. Marianne danced in the moonlight. Benny and Charlene slept the exhausted sleep of happy lovers. So did Earl and Molly. Kenny sat on the creek bank with his cane pole in his hand and talked to the catfish. A couple of weeks later, Sid had his first visitor.